Hello and welcome to Embracing the Fight. I am Erica Lamar, your digital creator and host. And as always, I tell you that embracing the fight is about normalizing the conversation surrounding physical and mental health issues and concerns. Now, why is this important? Well, think about it. All the things that you see, happening, going on in the news, all these unexplained reasons as to why people are going in attacking children, why they are driving their cars in the crowds, why they are purposefully crashing planes. I mean, it's happening everywhere, but everyone's acting like, we don't know why this is happening. So there is something or some things that are going on both physically and mentally that people don't talk about. And those things are causing them to act out and do things out of the ordinary or those unexplained things that we continually hear about. And that's why Embracing the Fight was created. I have thyroid cancer and I tell everyone about it because, you know, it's not common. It's not something that you just go to the doctor and say, "Oh, can I be, checked for thyroid cancer?" Or, "Oh, can I be checked for thyroid issues?" Some people just, shrug off thyroid issues as being tired or gaining weight and things of that nature. They don't even notice, the goiter that they may have forming on their neck. Well, if you've been with me for my entire journey, I know now that you know a whole lot more about your thyroid and all the different things that can um, befall you when you start to have issues with your thyroid. Now, with that all being said, if you would like to be on Embracing the Fight, if you want to share your story, it doesn't have to be, about thyroid cancer, it doesn't have to be about cancer at all. It could be, some mental issue that you're having. It could be, some triumph that you want to share to let others know that you can actually make it through. It could be something that, you want to share, but you want to do it anonymously. If you want to do that as well, we can always do the, little bubbles and bubble you out, or I could just tell the story. You give me the information. That way, no one will ever have, AI try to figure out who you are by, scanning your face or anything like that. Because man, technology is a trip. But either way, if you like to be on Embracing the Fight, just send me an email to operations@diversitydesigned, and I will send you a Calendly link, and we will get together and we will film this episode. Now, I'm also on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X, Blue Sky, and I think oh no, TikTok. I'm on TikTok as well. And anywhere that you can find podcasts, you will find Embracing the Fight. I say that because I'm with Libsyn, and they send my podcast out to 33 to 35 different platforms. So if you want to find me, you can because I'm out there. Well, now that I've gotten the business of all that out of the way, let's talk about episode 121, perimenopause and a midlife eating disorders. So let's just think about it. You know, Women in their, 40s or 50s, they start thinking about, menopause. But perimenopause is the period prior to menopause when you start noticing, those hormonal changes. You start, to gain weight, your period becomes irregular, and you start looking at yourself, differently, I think. Well, I had all my, hormones and things tested. And I'm not, at that stage yet. And I was like, good grief, here I am almost 50, and they're telling me, you can still have children if you like. And I'm like, okay, if it's the Lord's will, it's the Lord's will. But if not, I get it. But anyway, what I really want to talk about is those ladies who are experiencing perimenopause. I know I've heard several of my friends talk about, having personal summers. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they wake up in the middle of the night, and a lot of their husbands say, man, we go to sleep and it feels, nice and cool in here. And you wake up and it's like an Arctic blast. And it's like, what happened? And they'll have the, AC all the way down, the fan will be on. They won't have any covers on, and they just laying on top of the covers. And the man, the husband, he's got a hoodie on, he's got on a jacket, and he's got a quilt on, everything to try to stay warm. And she's looking at him like, hot. And poor man, he has no idea that she is experiencing menopause symptoms. Now, some people say that when they start having those hot flashes that they don't last. But I've never, experienced it, and I don't care to experience. I hope that part of life, just, I just skip over that, because when I see people go through that, it is the most interesting phenomenon that I've ever seen, because I was literally sitting next to someone at dinner, and they started having a hot flash, and the outfit they had on, you literally saw it just getting wet. It was soaked. Her face was pouring, and the hair was like dripping in the back. And I was like, oh my God, is she having a heart attack? Is she dying? What's going on here? And then she whips out this fan, and she's drinking ice water, and she's like, oh, it'll be over with in a second. And I'm like, oh my God, what can I do to help? And then the other ladies at the table, they're, oh, what did they tell her? That she could chew ginger, and she could take estrogen pills. They were giving her all this, advice. And I'm sitting here going, oh goodness. So you gotta take something to make that stop, and just hearing the conversations, because there were a few ladies that, were at the table that had, a hysterectomy, and some, had a partial hysterectomy. Others had like children, like lots of kids. Some had no kids, but each one of them here had varying levels of experience with these hot flashes. And here I was, like, being kind of like scared to death here listening to this stuff, because I just don't remember, I pride myself on paying a whole lot of attention to different things, but I just don't remember, my mom going through hot flashes to that extreme. Now, I remember sometimes she might have been a little hot or whatever. You saw her sitting in front of a air conditioner, or, drink some cold water, but we never woke up to the house freezing in the middle of the night or anything like that. But I don't know. But I said all that to say this: each person, as they're going from perimenopause and menopause, they experience different symptoms. And a lot of the people I found end up with some form, of body dysmorphia. They look at themselves and they say, you know what, I'm carrying more weight around my middle, and I'm not sure, how to handle this, because I've never had this problem before. I've always been a size 6, I've always been a size 8 or 10, and now here I am a 16, and I'm not eating any different. I'm still exercising the same, all that. Well, those hormonal changes have a lot to do with that. So one, you could give yourself some grace. Two, you could go and talk with your physician about some hormone replacement therapies that can help you. And then you can also look at doing some things holistically, naturally, because, soy, um, it also helps with estrogen deficiencies. So I'm saying, you drink your soy milk, you can eat soybeans, that sort of thing, to kind of see what it can do for you. I'm not a doctor by any means, and I'm not offering medical advice. Just saying that this is what I've read and this is what I've seen. And it's totally up to you to talk to your doctor and try these different things to see if they, can or will help you. Also, if you notice, a lot of people, or I should just say ladies, women, when they are going through this midlife change or this midlife crisis, they tend to eat more. Now, some of them will tell you, oh no, I hadn't changed where I eat. Some of them will replace, I don't know, a cold glass of ice water. They'll say, you know what, to calm down, these hot flashes, I drink Dr. Pepper on ice, or I'll have a root beer float, or I'll just eat a whole gallon of ice cream, and that's what brings, my temperature down. Well, if you keep doing that, and you don't find a way to expend all this energy that you have stored up, it's going to be, replaced with these nice little fat nodules. And you'll start seeing more cellulite, and you'll start seeing folds on your sides and around your waist that you want to get rid of. So, something that I have started doing every day, which, I didn't do today because I thought, that I had to go to jury duty, but I was actually excused and I didn't have to go to jury duty. And I was happy about that. Get there and it's like, oh no, we don't need you. I was like, maybe I should celebrate. I don't know. But I didn't get selected. No one got selected out of the group actually. But anyway, I digress. Each morning, what I was doing for the past, I don't know, let's say been about 6 weeks, I think. Maybe 6 weeks. We'll go with that for now. But each morning, I have been getting up sunrise and I have been walking a minimum of 3 miles. And I had gotten up to about 4.5 miles. I did 4.5 miles on Saturday. And on Monday, I walked, yeah, because I gave myself the day off on Sunday. And then Monday, I said I was going to walk, a reduced amount because when I looked at my Fitbit, it was basically telling me I was overdoing it. And then I couldn't figure out, I was like, why does my neck hurt? Why do I feel, all these weird stress points in my body? It's probably because, I'm doing much more than what I was doing before. Because I'll be honest, some days I would look at my Fitbit and I was thinking he was gonna ask me, have you done anything today? What's really going on here? Because it would have less than 3,000 steps. And then when I started walking more, some days I would have like 15,000 steps, 20,000 steps, and with those days where I had 15,000, 20,000, Fitbit was like, hey, it's great that you're exercising, but you don't want to overdo it because overdoing it causes muscle strain, it causes, injury and all these different things. So I said, I'm not with that. Here I am, trying to get in shape. I don't want to be laid up, because I'm trying to do too much too soon. So basically what I did was I only walked 2 miles on Monday. Well, Tuesday, it rained. And today, like I said, I thought I had jury duty, but then I got excused from that so I can walk, later today. I just haven't walked yet. But I'm saying that to say this. When your body goes through any type of change, especially when it's a hormonal change, you have to change. You have to do something different. You can't expect, your body to just say, okay, well, I know that this number, the estrogen is going down, testosterone is going up, or I have this going on or that going on, then I got to do something different. So it's one thing, to get the hormone replacement therapy, but it's another thing to get your body to naturally fight for itself. That's just like, think about it when you have a cold. Some people tell you just to overload yourself, with vitamin C. Sure, you could do that. But what happens when, I don't know, you take too much vitamin C? What does that do to you? That's not necessarily a positive thing. So we have to do things and do them in moderation. So you could take the vitamin C, you could take cold medicine, but just imagine if you were to take vitamin C, put on a sweatsuit and go for a walk, like one of those sauna kind of suits to make you sweat out the toxins and the things that, are causing you to have a cold. Then the next time you get a cold, your body's response is going to be so much greater because you gave it the opportunity to fight. You allowed your immune system to fight for you. So that's a similar kind of thing when it comes to, your hormones. So if, say, you're having a hot flash and you feeding yourself to cool yourself off, all this ice cream and stuff, then your body's response the next time is going to require more of whatever that is to cool you off. But just imagine if instead I don't know, drank some soy, or you took some type of hormone therapy. Say you did both. And say when you got to the point where you were the hottest, that, you drank ice cold water, took hormone therapy, and then you drank some soy behind it. Now, like I said, I'm not a doctor, but I think that what could potentially have is that your symptoms will lessen rather than feeding yourself a bunch of ice cream and sweet tea and soda and all that kind of stuff, because those things aren't necessarily good for you either, because the more sugar that you add to your body, um, it causes other issues. You think about it, sugar, excess sugar, in your teeth, that's cavities, in your bones, it's arthritis, in your brain, in your mind, that's Alzheimer's, in your eyes, it's glaucoma. Who wants that stuff? Any excess sugar that's just around in your body can potentially cause cancer. So why would you want to reduce hot flash symptoms with something that could potentially cause all those issues that you're having, right? So you adding all the sugar, you gaining weight, you're already feeling some type of way about yourself because you're hot and you're having these hormonal changes. That's what perimenopause, is. It's that time before you go into full blown menopause. And the difference is, in order to get from perimenopause to menopause, you have to not have a menstrual cycle period for 1 full year. Now, I heard a lady one time, when I say I was so tickled, I know it wasn't funny, but I was tickled. I was at a gynecologist, and this lady was talking about how she was like, how did she say she was? She was like 56. And she was talking to the lady next to her, but I was like behind him. And she was saying how, oh, it's been almost a year. I was at day 362. And she said, my period came on. She said, I thought I was free and clear. I thought I was out the woods. And the other lady was like, well, you are. That might have just been a one off. She said, no, honey. She said, why you think I'm here? And she was like, I don't know. I guess you asking her, what you need to do, with this period now. She's like, no, I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna do with this baby. And I was like, oh my goodness. When she said it, I was just thinking, okay, maybe she was upset that she was gonna have to start over, counting the days between, periods to see if it was gonna be a year. She's like, no, I'm about to have a whole baby around here. And she's like, oh, my kid's grown. And, she was like, the other lady, I know she wanted to ask her, is this you and your husband, baby? I know the lady wanted to get nosy and everything, but she didn't, because she was so shocked, and I was just tickled because I was like, dang, I was like, that could be me. Like, what in the world, But I'm not married, not dating nobody, none of that kind of stuff. So I don't have to worry about that. Not at this point. But just to hear that lets me know that a lot of people don't understand that, even though your periods aren't regular when you're going through perimenopause, you can still have a baby. You can still have children. This is not, so a lot of people think that, oh, since I haven't had a period in almost a year, that I can't get pregnant. Y'all better talk to that lady that was sitting behind me at the doctor's office. I was like, oh my God. And she was just sitting there like, I just don't even know how to explain this. It's like, ma'am, it's very simple. Everybody knows how babies are made, I don't know. But I was just so tickled by that, because I was like, you know what, God, you do your things, in your time and in your way. We are just mere pawns in this life. Well, anyway, let me go back to what I was talking about when it comes to the eating disorders. I've talked to a couple of ladies who went through menopause like really, really young in life. And the strange thing about it, one of them was being misdiagnosed. They were telling her she had some other issue. And she kept saying, my periods are weird. She's like, sometimes they come, sometimes they don't. They had put her on like some type of birth control shot. And she thought that the shot was just that effective. And it was like, no, you've already gone through menopause. She was in her 30s. And she was getting these hot flashes. She didn't know what was going on. She thought she was dying. She had no idea. Could you imagine being 30 years old and having a hot flash and not, you've never had any kids and you're not sure why you feel the way you feel and your heart rate, is elevated. You think you're having a heart attack. And they are too, because they checking your heart, they're checking all this stuff, but everything checks out because you're healthy. But you find out when you're in your early 40s that you actually have already gone through menopause. It's like, what? How does someone miss that? So there's a couple of ways. How often do you get your hormones, checked? Sure, you do those biometric screenings every year to check for like cholesterol, for triglycerides, for all those kinds of things. But do you have the hormones that are indicative of the function of your reproductive system tested? And if the answer is no, you should. You should know these things because this will give you an idea of whether or not you are, at the peak or are you starting to decline? And that's how I said I found out, I was at the peak and I was like, really? Not, look, don't get me wrong, I am not sad at all. I am still very excited, very happy about that because all the stuff that I hear that goes on, once you start to decline, I don't look forward to that. And I'm not saying, that those people that are going through that sort of thing, that it's absolutely horrible. I'm not saying that either. It's just a fact or a part of life. And I want to get there when I'm supposed to get there. I don't want to rush anything at all. Just let it, Lord, let it happen when it's supposed to happen. So some things that you can do that can help you deal with the symptoms of perimenopause. Eat a balanced diet. Stay hydrated. Exercise. Make sure that you have someone that you can talk to, someone that you can confide in when you start to have these strange, feelings and these um, different views of yourself. Because sometimes when you speak about those things, the people around you have already noticed those changes, in you, and they just don't realize, what they are. And it could all be due to a hormonal change. And you should talk to your doctor about it. I mean, don't just wait to go to the doctor because you fell and broke your leg or because you got this big knot, on your back and you don't know why it's there. You should go to your physician regularly and make sure that you are having these biometric screenings and these hormonal tests. That way, you'll know exactly how your body is performing and you'll know what to do to help counteract some of the issues that you may face or are facing just at a different level. Prevention is the best medicine. Not that you can prevent menopause, but if you start to maintain a healthy weight and maintain healthy relationships and really focus on how your body is changing and how it responds to different things, then my belief is that you can get through it much easier than letting it catch you by surprise or having you feel some type of way when you wake up in a pool of sweat and you don't know what's going on because you didn't just finish exercising, you just woke up and the air conditioning is on like 68. Like this doesn't make sense. Be prepared. Read as much as you can. And we have our little friend, ChatGPT. You can describe all of your symptoms. You can describe everything that you have going on. And you can ask it for a plan. Say, hey, what can I do to help combat some of these things? But still, ChatGPT does not offer medical advice. It doesn't offer, it'll tell you about some natural hormones and natural therapies, but it will not give you medical advice, at least not yet. Who knows what it can do because, technology changes so quickly. But I say make sure you get all of your information together and set up an appointment to speak with your OBGYN about perimenopause and the changes that your body is seeing. And as always, I would like to thank you all for listening to this episode of Embracing the Fight. And I want you to have an absolutely amazing day.